Hello, Matt Bannon here with Granite Point Tax Group, talking about the difference between a business and a hobby. So all income, unless specifically excluded by law, is taxable, but not all expenses are deductible. And the biggest difference between a business and a hobby is that hobby expenses are limited to the income generated by the hobby. Generally, if you are producing income, you can deduct expenses against that income so that you're paying tax on the profit you make. But in a hobby, that's still the case. However, if your expenses exceed the income generated by the hobby, you can only deduct those expenses to the extent of the income earned. So say you're building some kind of little gadget that you sell at the farmer's market or something. If you generate $1,000 of income, but it costs $2,500 to build those things, you can only take $1,000 of expenses against that $1,000 of income you made. And on top of that, the income is reported on page 1 of your tax return, $1,000 hobby income. The expenses are deducted as an itemized deduction on Schedule A, if you file Schedule A, and they're subject to a 2% income limitation. So the net effect is, if you generate money with a hobby, you're always going to pay at least a little bit of tax. A business, on the other hand, if the expenses exceed the income generated, and you end up with a net loss, that loss can be used against other types of income. So if you have wages, interest, dividends, rental, pension, whatever, that business loss will offset some of those other types of income, and you'll pay less taxes that way. Now, it can be difficult to determine the difference between a business and a hobby, and that becomes important when you have a business that incurs several years of losses, especially right out of the gate. The IRS may wonder, if you really are a business at all, or if this is just a hobby that you're deducting on your tax return as a business. The difference comes down to profit intent. Do you really intend to make a profit? Are you really trying to make a profit? That's what a business is. That's the definition of a business for taxes, is the profit motive. If you don't have it, then you're a hobby. Even if you make a profit, you are still a hobby if you're not trying to make a profit. So how do we determine who is trying to make a profit and who isn't? That can be difficult to do as well. A lot of people spend huge amounts of time and money on a hobby. So there is a set of guidelines that has been developed mostly by the tax courts, but the IRS uses it. And these factors are used to determine who is really trying to make a profit. Things like what kind of books and records do you keep? How much time do you spend at the activity? If you have made profits in the past, how large were they compared to the losses you've incurred? What kind of success have you had in other business ventures? Let's see, how much personal enjoyment are you getting out of this? How financially dependent are you on the success of the venture? And it's not an exclusive list. You're just looking at all the facts and circumstances and making this determination of whether or not a profit motive exists. So essentially, if you plan on deducting a loss from an activity, you better have a profit motive. Get a good business plan in place that shows how and when you expect to make a profit. If things aren't going well, be sure to reassess how you're doing, and should you change, and where can you trim expenses, how can you boost revenue. All these things are crucial to proving your profit motive in an audit. And this would only come up in an audit. This is not something that you have to disclose on your tax return or anything. This would be questioned by the IRS or a state revenue agency in the face of continued losses on your tax return. So that's about the difference between the business and the hobby. Pretty simple on the surface. Do you have a profit motive or not? But as we can see, it gets pretty difficult to prove that. How do you prove you're trying to make a profit and prove it on paper? That's where it really counts. So if you are in a hobby loss audit and would like some help or just want to talk about the issues and make sure that you are taking appropriate steps to document your profit intent, just give us a call, 503-208-3736. Thanks.